Judy Garland's meteoric rise to fame as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz was just the start of her tumultuous journey. Join us as we explore the many triumphs and tragedies of Judy Garland's life. Factsverse presents 10 tragic stories about the life of Judy Garland. The Real Wicked Witch. Judy Garland's journey began in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, where she was born Frances Ethel Gumm on June 10, 1922. But her path wasn't an easy one, and she was born into the shadow of her overbearing mother. From the moment she was born, Judy's mother saw her merely as a means to an end, hoping to turn her daughter into a star to fulfill her own unfulfilled dreams. Despite the fact that Judy was her third child, her mother even considered aborting her, but her doctors convinced her otherwise. At just 2.5 years old, Judy was thrust into the stage by her mother, who was desperate to make her daughter famous. She and her sisters formed an act that toured the vaudeville circuit, but the real goal was always Hollywood. The family eventually moved to Lancaster, California when Judy was 4, with her mother determined to keep them as close to the glitz and glamour of Hollywood as possible. But as Judy later recalled, her mother's obsession with fame and success turned her into the real Wicked Witch of the West, casting a dark and oppressive shadow over her formative years. Her parents' unhappy marriage. Judy Garland's birth in 1922 wasn't planned. Judy had 2 older sisters, Mary Jane and Virginia, and the family moved from Grand Rapids, Minnesota to California in 1926 due to rumors of Frank Gumm's affairs with young men and teenage boys. Despite the move, the Gumms' troubled marriage continued to be a source of anxiety for Judy. But it was in California that her career began to take off when she signed with MGM in 1935. The same year her dad passed away from meningitis. Ethel remarried 4 years later on the anniversary of Frank's death, which further strained her relationship with Judy. The actor's already difficult childhood was made even more challenging due to her mother's remarriage and Judy's deep-seated resentment towards her new stepfather. Hooked from childhood. Judy Garland's life in Hollywood was a relentless cycle of pressure and chemicals. Since she was a little girl, her mom thrust her into the spotlight, and when she became a star at MGM, Garland spent 6 days a week, sometimes up to 72 hours at a time, on set. To keep up with such an alarmingly demanding schedule, Hollywood studios fed their stars pep pills, followed by different pills to help them sleep. Garland's addiction started early, and by age 17, she was already addicted to multiple substances. She was bullied for her weight. Judy not only suffered from childhood traumas, but also dehumanizing comments about her weight. Upon signing with MGM in 1935, she was expected to appear in her first feature film at age 14, Pigskin Parade. To ensure she was camera-ready, studio head Louis B. Mayer demanded that Garland follow a strict diet of chicken soup, black coffee, and cigarettes, along with appetite-reducing pills. Garland began to develop negative self-image, referring to herself as a fat little frightening pig in pigtails, a self-image that was perpetuated by MGM. Even the press criticized her weight, with the New York Post calling her Plump Judy Garland. Garland's constant struggle with food was what she remembered the most from her childhood. Unfortunately, her body image issues persisted into adulthood, as recalled by her third husband, Sid Luft, in his book Judy and I. Garland never gave up her desire to be camera slim, even if it meant resorting to shockingly dangerous means. Filming Oz was a nightmare. Judy's role in The Wizard of Oz made her an iconic figure in pop culture, but at a great cost. According to some reports, during filming, Garland was put on a strict diet and became addicted to stimulants. She was also once slapped by director Victor Fleming when she struggled through a scene. But Garland faced even bigger problems with sexual assault from higher-ups at MGM. Studio head Louis B. Mayer was the worst offender. Biographer Gerald Clark told ABC News that Mayer would compliment Garland's singing while placing his hand on her chest and saying, "This is where you sing from." The abuse continued for 4 years until Garland finally stood up for herself, which apparently made Mayer cry. Garland later reflected she was lucky it didn't involve singing with another part of her anatomy. She was fired for having a breakdown. Garland's childhood was not typical, as she was raised under the wing of MGM. During the period from 1939 to 1948, she acted in 21 films while taking all of those aforementioned substances. This routine had detrimental effects on the star's work, making it challenging for her to get through her lines and musical numbers and resulting in tardiness and absences from set. It also took a serious toll on her mental health. While filming The Pirate in 1947, she had a nervous breakdown and had to be put in a private sanitarium. As time passed, the star received electroshock therapy for depression. By 1950, her relationship with MGM was strained, leading to her suspension from the filming of Annie Get Your Gun. This led to further electroshock therapy, and a disgruntled Louis B. Mayer complained about having millions tied up in her. Ultimately, MGM fired Garland on June 17th of that year, following a few more on-set stumbles. She struggled to be a good mother. Garland's troubled childhood made her prioritize her own children's well-being. She had 3 children, Liza Minnelli, Lorna Luft, and Joey Luft. Despite her best efforts, Garland struggled with her own personal demons, which continued until her death in 1969. Liza took on adult responsibilities at an early age and dealt with many of her mother's problems. Lorna and Joey also faced the challenges of their mother's financial struggles. By 1967, they were broke, and Lorna recalled an incident where her mother threatened to jump out of a hotel window due to unpaid bills. All 3 children were powerless to help their mother's addiction, which obviously resulted in a great deal of trauma for all of them. Her love life was hellish. Judy Garland's love life was plagued with instability, as none of her marriages lasted. She was married 5 times, 4 ending in divorce, and the 5th cut tragically short by her death. At only 19, she eloped with David Rose, who was 31. MGM disapproved, and the couple divorced in 1944 after a secret abortion and disagreements. Her second husband, Vincent Minnelli, was approved by the studio, and they married in 1945, but parted ways in 49 due to her instability. Her longest marriage was with Sid Luft from 1952 to 65, but they eventually separated for similar reasons. She had a brief marriage to Mark Herron in 1967, which ended in divorce in 69, the same year she married Mickey Deans. But her physical and mental ailments led to her death 3 months after the wedding. Judy's heartbreaking history of self-harm. It's understandable that Judy's mental health suffered greatly due to her demanding schedule and the severe mental trauma inflicted upon her by her mother and MGM. Sadly, the star made numerous attempts at taking her own life. Her first attempt was in 1947 while filming The Pirate with Gene Kelly. This came after her first nervous breakdown, which led to her being admitted into a mental health institution. Instead of providing Garland with the necessary help, her mother merely bandaged up her wounds and had her continue filming the musical. Her final performances were hard to watch. The latter stages of her life were far from glamorous. In her memoir, Me and My Shadows, Garland's daughter Lorna recounted the financial difficulties her mother faced, citing agents, the IRS, missed concerts, and old debts as the reason why Garland was completely broke. However, despite facing eviction notices, Garland was so accustomed to a certain standard of living, she had, quote, no clue what things cost or how to keep track of her finances. In 1968, a year before her death, Garland went on a series of concerts in London. According to Time magazine, the performances were hard to watch due to her slurred speech and heckling of the audience. Now it's time to hear from you. What was the most surprising part of this story? Let us know in the comments section below.